There's a photograph doing the rounds. Mark Nussbaum and his partner Sam Lowinger snapped at the end of a hearty meal with Mendy Steiner and another associate. Everyone prosperous, connected, part of something. This photo was taken before everything collapsed. Before Steiner checked into a swanky Manhattan hotel room and never checked out. Before hundreds of millions of dollars went missing from escrow accounts. Before Nussbaum stood in Manhattan criminal court, handcuffed, charged with first-degree grand larceny, in what is shaping up to be the biggest escrow fraud in New York real estate in recent memory. This is The Promote from 1031 Media. I'm Hitsan Samtani. If you want insider CRE analysis like this weekly, hit subscribe up there. All right, let's break it down. Calling Mark Nussbaum a commercial real estate attorney is like calling Robert Moses a parks commissioner. Technically correct, but woefully inadequate. Nussbaum wasn't just performing real estate closings for the Five Towns, Brooklyn, and Lakewood crowd. He was raising money, making introductions, facilitating what the Orthodox community calls show capital. These temporary deposits that magically materialize in your bank account just long enough to prove to a lender that you've got skin in the game. He was running bridge loans through his firm's escrow accounts, collecting a couple points on each deal. He had the charm, the chutzpah, and the drive. Most importantly, he had what sources called among the strongest frum Rolodexes in New York City. When you needed capital quick, when you needed to show purchasing power, chances are you'd call Mark Nussbaum. And for years, it worked. Nussbaum had the hunger to live large, and he had the skills to make it happen. Art, a beautiful home, pateks, an extensive kosher wine collection. Then came January 2025. Just after the new year, nursing home bigwig Jacob Saad filed a lawsuit. He alleged that Nussbaum refused to return $15 million that were held with him in escrow. Saad alleged that the money had been diverted without his knowledge or consent, supposedly to a company called Georgetown Residences. This could be traced back to a rental property in Indiana. But another lawsuit suggested another theory. The money had gone to a Borough Park contact of both Nussbaum and Steiner as hush money to keep them from talking to authorities. On January 9th, Mendy Steiner took his own life at the Aman New York. He was 33 years old. A scion of a wealthy family who as a real estate investor amassed thousands of units, and he was a longtime client and friend of Mark Nussbaum. At the time, sources told the Promote that the Saad-Nussbaum lawsuit was essential context to understand Steiner, that it revealed crucial details about Steiner's tangled web of debts. 6 days after Steiner's death, Nussbaum abruptly shuttered his law firm. Anyone with funds in escrow were directed to an attorney handling the wind down. The lawsuits began piling up like sardines. Hard money lenders claimed millions of dollars missing. Every lender and sponsor rushed to sue so they wouldn't be left behind. The common allegation, money that had been routed to Nussbaum-controlled escrow accounts left without their consent and never made its way back. But here's what had been happening behind the scenes. Nussbaum had built an entire business model around his escrow accounts. Money would come in from deep pockets in the Orthodox community, people like Jacob Saad, who could put up 8 figures without blinking. Nussbaum would promise to hold that money in escrow for show capital purposes. In exchange, investors would earn handsome returns, often structured through what's known as a shuttered, which is a Jewish legal framework for profit-sharing arrangements. For a couple weeks of funds sitting in an account, a lender could earn hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the money wasn't just sitting in escrow, it was filtering out to dealmakers who needed capital fast. Nussbaum was running what amounted to a shadow lending operation through his attorney-controlled escrow accounts. And increasingly, those loans were flowing to Mendy Steiner. A lawsuit filed by the court-appointed assignee for Nussbaum's law firms alleges Steiner was running a Ponzi scheme through Nussbaum's escrow accounts. It seeks to recover over $300 million from Steiner-controlled entities. Steiner would pitch investors on deals. He claimed, for example, that he had special arrangements with HUD to buy multifamily properties at auction. He'd provide descriptions of properties, names of sellers, promises of fixed returns, plus equity. Investors would wire money into Nussbaum's accounts, supposedly for deposits or acquisitions, and it was supposed to remain in escrow until closing. But the deals were fugazi, this lawsuit alleges. In some cases, the sellers didn't own the properties. In others, no sales agreement existed at all. Steiner never had any arrangement with HUD. The money was being transferred to Steiner-controlled entities, with Nussbaum allegedly replacing Steiner's name in transaction documents with fugazi law firm clients to obscure the trail. By late 2024, the system was breaking down. Steiner's portfolio was imploding. JP Morgan identified over $200 million in seriously delinquent 2023 vintage CMBS loans. 2/3 of them were sponsored by Steiner. Despite properties having ample cash flow to cover debt service, the loans went bad almost immediately after origination. These observations naturally cause investors to question the underwriting and sponsorship, JP Morgan wrote in its research note. And Nussbaum was running out of money to pay back the investors who were starting to ask questions. When Saad filed his January lawsuit, it sent shockwaves. A day later, Steiner was dead. The collapse accelerated, more lawsuits, more allegations of missing millions. Eventually, Nussbaum hired prominent criminal defense attorney Zach Trader. By March, sources were openly wondering about why Nussbaum hadn't been charged yet, given his connection to players in this entire federal mortgage fraud investigation that we've talked about. In May, the Manhattan DA finally moved. Nussbaum was arrested. He was charged with first-degree grand larceny. The DA alleges that he stole over $15 million from two victims between September 2024 and March 2025, but added that there was reason to believe that more victims existed. The investigation is ongoing. Nussbaum arrived at New York criminal court handcuffed. He pleaded not guilty. Now, the full scale of this alleged fraud is emerging. In an alternative bankruptcy proceeding, Nussbaum revealed that he owes almost $300 million in unpaid balances to creditors. He also claims that his law firm has to collect right around that figure from Steiner. The last major New York real estate attorney facing allegations of escrow fraud diversion was Mitch Kosoff. He was accused of stealing $15 million from clients. Seems paltry in comparison to what we're talking about here. And he got up to 13.5 years in prison. The numbers here are exponentially larger. But that's not all that makes this case so extraordinary. It's the web of connections, the sheer number of players orbiting around Nussbaum. It's the tragic intersection of aggressive real estate speculation, shadow banking operations, and tight-knit community dynamics where reputation and relationships overrode due diligence. And it's the human cost. A young father who built an empire and couldn't escape its collapse. Investors who trusted community and Heimish connections more than legal protections. An attorney whose connections and relationships became evidence in a criminal investigation. Mark Nussbaum built his career being at the center of deals, the essential connector, the man in the action who could make things happen. Now he's at the center of the largest escrow fraud New York has seen in over a decade. The connections are still there. They just tell a very different story. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Hinten with the Promote. For more like this, please hit that subscribe button and do share this with whoever might be interested. Also, if you have ideas on what we should break down next, comment below and let us know. And check out thepromote.com and the Promote podcast for the best CRE Insider content. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.